All right, Jan. Let's do this last one. Let me get a big yawn going here. It's already after midnight. Sorry about that, bud. I'll try to go through this thing. Here's our 3 count. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Hello once again. This is Dr. Gregory. And I would like to welcome you back to part 4 in this seminar series of Functional Isodynamics, Applied Exercise, and Nutrition. Obviously, this will be the last of our 4 parts, and in this section I'll be addressing some terms and concepts that will give you a better appreciation for how and why functional isodynamics works so powerfully. Also, I'll present information that will allow you to better understand just how your energy systems are associated with ATP, a term I'm sure many of you are familiar with, and how the intensity and duration of your exercise programs can either impede your progress or provide you with the results you strive to achieve through your various workout programs. Also, we will touch briefly on some nutritional concepts and conclude with a short review to try and bring all of this together. Of course, I would be remiss if I did not encourage you to join our Functional Isodynamics team. Now, with that being said, let's begin with understanding some terms and concepts. Now, many of you might very well understand all of the terms and concepts I'm about to introduce. However, some of us might actually be hindering our very progress because we don't understand how these terms and concepts apply, and better understanding of them would help us deal more effectively with our health objectives. Cut. Let me do it. 1, 2, 3. Ready? Understanding terms and concepts. Now, many of you might very well understand all of the terms we're about to introduce. However, some of us might actually be hindering the very progress we're trying to achieve in our workouts because we don't understand these terms and concepts and how they actually apply to us, and how understanding them in more detail might allow all of us to achieve our health objectives. But before we look at these terms, let me set the stage by asking you a few simple questions. Given that all of your previous exercise and programs and diets are probably all over the map, ask yourself, why didn't you get results from all of those programs? Or why didn't you get the results that you desired? Now, to help appreciate your situation, let's do a simple assessment. Think seriously about your previous, or even all of your previous exercise and nutritional programs. But let's focus first on our exercise programs. Is the program you're in, or have been in, are they aerobic when they should be anaerobic? Because if you don't know the answer, then you might be sabotaging your own success. And further, these are some of the terms and concepts we want to make sure that you have a very clear understanding of, so that you will know how to benefit from their application. How about this? When you exercise, are you forcing your body to use fat or glucose or protein to create that ATP that we referred to a minute ago? Again, understanding the terms, the concepts, and knowing how to apply them will ultimately help you achieve the success that you want from your exercise and nutrition program. Now, from what we've already discussed, ask yourself, is the program that you're engaging in actually stimulating your central nervous system? Is it stimulating to the point that you're developing that strength and that muscle development? Obviously, from our example, are you pushing Volkswagens or are you pushing semis? Let's focus on your nutritional program for a moment. Let's just ask a few questions about that. Does it support your neurotransmitters and hormones? Now, this might be a difficult question because many people believe that the nutritional program that they're utilizing is actually supplying them with what they need. And the question is, well, do you know what you need? And further, are your nutritional products actually supplying that need? As we previously discussed, is your program actually fulfilling the essential macro and micronutrient requirements? Because not just your muscles, but your entire body needs to recover, it needs to regenerate, and it needs the proper nutrition to do that. Now, does your nutritional program create an anabolic or a catabolic environment? You might ask, just how would you know this? Or what are the consequences to this? And while we are discussing this catabolic concept, ask yourself this very important question. Is your exercise program placing you in a catabolic state? And how would you know if it was the case? So let's start with a few basic terms and see if we can find the answer to all of these questions. Let's talk about strength. After all, that is our number one objective. And if it's not, then maybe it's just you want a firmer body, but you're not going to get a firmer body without tighter muscles. You're not going to get tighter muscles without strength. So regardless of what you really want, this is where you have to start. And strength is the result of three factors which overlap. Let's take a look at those three real quick. Physiological strength, which is essentially the muscle size. Neurological strength, which is basically how weak or how strong that signal is that tells the muscle to contract. And the mechanical strength, of course, the muscle's force angle on the lever, arm length, leg length, joint capacities and such. So you might ask, well, what does all that really mean? Well, let's try this approach. Again, strength is a result of three factors that overlap. The physiological strength is literally from your, or dependent upon your training. The neurological strength is that signal. It's dependent upon the resistance. Obviously, pushing a Volkswagen sends one signal, pushing a semi sends another signal. Mechanical strength, that muscle force on your DNA issues we talked about, we have some input on, but we don't have a lot on. We can't change the length of your arms. We can't change the length of your leg. Now, all that being said, the one variable that we have no direct control over is that last component, that mechanical strength. If you properly and adequately employ these steps that we're defining in our program, then you will have great impact on number three. If you really work on number one, the training, and you really work on number two, which is the resistance, then you really can have an impact on the results of number three, the actual mechanical strength. How about these terms and concepts? Let's see if we can appreciate these. Let's talk about muscular activity accounting for much of the body's energy consumption. Now, that's important because the more muscle you have, the more calories you can consume, or you will consume. Your body will burn them up. Now, all muscle cells produce adenosine triphosphate. That's that ATP we alluded to a few minutes ago, and we're going to go into it a little bit deeper. Now, again, this is not a seminar in cellular biology, but the more you understand about ATP, the greater will be your understanding and appreciation for all the work that I've accomplished with functional isodynamics. And, of course, the greater results you'll get. ATP molecules are used to power the movement of the myosin heads. Now, that being said, let's don't confuse that with the attachment areas of the muscles or the terms such as deltoid heads. These are the actual muscle fibers themselves. Let's look a little deeper into these terms myosin and better understand this concept of ATP. Myosin. How does myosin work? Well, in a nutshell, it interacts with actin to convert chemical energy in the form of ATP to mechanical energy to to create the muscle contraction. Now, the key is to understand that there is a conversion going on in your body for the entire purpose of generating muscle contraction. All right, we're not flexing a muscle, we're contracting the muscle. So at this point, we want to realize the connection then between ATP and muscle contraction. There's a chemical conversion with this ATP, which sole purpose is to create muscle contraction. Now let's look a little deeper into this relationship of muscle and muscle contraction. Muscles, all of our muscles, skeletal muscles, have a short-term store of energy in the form of creatine phosphate, which is generated from ATP. Muscle cells contain globules of fat, which are used for energy during low-intensity aerobic exercise. Notice the muscles derive energy from creatine phosphate and from fat, but again, the fat is used for energy during low-intensity aerobic exercise. We'll discuss more of this in detail shortly. So besides the creatine phosphate and the fat, notice the muscles also keep a storage in the form of glucose, or is actually stored as glycogen, which can be rapidly converted for energy, which would be required for those powerful muscle contractions, or the sustained powerful contractions. And the sustained part is really critical. Now, we've just discussed that your skeletal muscles and their energy requirements, but the heart really is a special deal. Your heart's not concerned with what is there, it's just concerned that something is, because it can readily consume any of the macronutrients. Aerobic this, back up one, Jan. Get a drink. Drying out. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Now, we have just discussed that your skeletal muscles and your... Oh, shit. Sorry about that. Do it again. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Now, we have just discussed your skeletal muscles and their energy requirements. But your heart is really special. Notice it can readily consume any of the 3 macronutrients, the protein, the glucose, the fat, aerobically, without a warm-up period, and it always extracts the maximum ATP. So your cardiac muscle versus your skeletal muscles. Skeletal muscles contraction is stimulated by electrical impulses transmitted by the nerves, which we referred to a moment ago. This is that neurological strength, that signal. And this strength was dependent upon the strength of the signal from your nervous system. And as I mentioned a moment ago, the stimulator is dependent upon the resistance. In other words, the greater the weighted resistance that you are dealing with, the greater the stimulation to your nervous system, and the greater the electrical impulses that are transmitted to your nerves. So again, are you pushing a Volkswagen or are you pushing a semi? All skeletal muscle contractions are facilitated by the neurotransmitter acetylcholine, which is an amino acid. Now, this is important because when your muscles, skeletal muscles, are required to contract, they will use amino acids. A very important point. And I will be very clear in this by the end of the seminar, just how important that is. So this neurotransmitter, these amino acids, acts on both the peripheral nervous system and the central nervous system. And also, if you notice, the somatic nervous system to get what? Voluntary muscle movements via skeletal muscles. So you want to work out, this is what you're having to deal with. In other words, to make your muscles contract or move, your muscles will use amino acids to facilitate that required action. Now, to better understand strength and muscle development, you need to appreciate the value of stress. The greater the exercise, the weighted stress, the greater the stimulation. Here we can appreciate that the stress in this case is the amount of resistance that we employ in our exercise. Essentially, it is the amount of weight that we use and how we use it. So it only makes sense that if we use a really heavy weight, like a semi, this would represent a greater stress to your body than a relatively light weight, like a Volkswagen. So let's understand two basic requirements for you to develop strength and then muscle. Stress. The first basic component is, as just discussed, the stress or the weighted resistance. However, this stress must be sufficient to create the required electrical impulses or the electrical response. And notice it has to be within the anaerobic limits, which is a very critical point. And I'll go into this in more detail before we conclude this seminar. Now, also required is the proper and adequate nutrition. It must be constantly available for the recreation and recreation of Also, 1, 2, 3. Sorry about that, Jan. 1, 2, 3. Also required is the proper and adequate nutrition. It must be constantly available for the creation. Shoot, man, I'm sorry, bud, I screwed up. Let me back up. 1, 2, 3. Also required is the proper and adequate nutrition, which must be constantly available for the recreation and recuperation of all body cells, not just the muscles. Now, there are a few other components that must not be neglected. As we have already mentioned, you must not go beyond that limit where you don't recover. You have to recover. And we'll also address a few other vital elements before the seminar is concluded, hydration being one of them. However, it bears repeating that for you to develop strength and then muscle, you must have the proper exercise resistance to stimulate the electrical impulses to the muscles, and you must be able to support these stimulated muscle tissues with essential nutrition. Now, this is a quick read and a quick review. It's no myth. It's just science and biology. So what stress can trigger the electrical signals to start that strength cycle, that muscle development cycle? Get those neurotransmitters moving, get those electrical impulses, get those nerves moving. Obviously, if the nerves are in the muscles, to stimulate the nerves and therefore the muscles, you must use stress. And again, we could use Volkswagens and semis. You can ask yourself, is doing 4 sets of 10 repetitions with 5-pound dumbbells going to create sufficient stress to stimulate your muscles to develop strength? Or would maybe 1 set of 10 reps with 25 pounds? Now, we'll be looking deeper into this contrast throughout the remaining program, but to help you better appreciate these principles and their applications, look at this. Which stress will really facilitate real strength and muscle growth? Let's look into more of what is required by you to perform these exercises. In other words, where do you get the energy to perform the exercise that creates the stimulation to develop the strength and the muscle? Well, proper development of muscle strength cannot be accomplished without the energy for muscle contraction. So, now we come back to a previous point, muscle contraction. After all, if you are holding a weight of any proportion, you cannot do anything with it, including the lifting of the weight in any position, unless you can get your muscles to contract. So why is this important to understand? Well, let's talk about ATP, your energy systems. Let's take a few minutes to gain a basic understanding of just how your energy systems work, so that you can better understand how this might be preventing you from achieving your desired health goals. Your energy systems. Energy for your muscle contractions during exercise comes from the splitting of the high energy compound ATP. Remember the chemical and mechanical conversion processes, as we have previously identified. Your body takes chemicals or substrate materials and converts them into mechanical energy through this process, and it's accomplished with the application of different energy converting systems. You and I have 3 energy systems. The first one is the adenosine triphosphate, the ATP-PC, or sometimes referred to as the alactic system. The second one is the lactic acid, or referred to also as the glycolysis system. And the third one is the aerobic, or the oxidation system. Now, all 3 energy systems are activated at the start of your exercise program. If you were to jump up from your seat right now and walk across the room, all 3 of these energy systems would come online. They all work together, but one will dominate based upon the intensity and duration of your exercise requirements, or just how fast you jump up and how hard you run across the room. Here again, the critical elements are the interaction between the intensity and the duration of your exercise program. Recall our comparison between the typical 90-minute guru workout and the 5-minute or even the 3-minute functional isodynamic workout. Now, let's make sure that we fully understand the difference between this aerobic type exercise and this anaerobic type. Again, the 3 energy systems. Remember what we talked about. ATP is stored in a very small amount in the muscles, and it really doesn't give you a lot of energy for contractions, a very short period of time. The really big question is not so much what is the difference, but more to the point, which one of these 3 energy systems are you employing in your exercise program? Well, let's talk about the difference. What is anaerobic exercise? Well, essentially, it's anaerobic means in the absence of oxygen. It's typically a high intensity, short duration, not marathon, short duration, and it develops force. As I stated at the very beginning, functional isodynamics requires great force. And the good thing is it burns calories even when the body's at rest. You get that anaerobic exercise doing well for you, and it will continue to work even when you're not in the gym. Now, the real key again is the absence of oxygen. And if executed correctly, the high intensity, short duration will develop force, which will help impress upon the nervous system the stimulation required for muscle and strength enhancement and muscle growth. But what most people will appreciate is that if you exercise correctly, your body again will continue to burn those calories even when you're not in the gym. Now, here are a few fundamental reasons for employing correct anaerobic exercise. First of all, it's used by athletes in non-endurance sports to promote, notice again, strength, speed, and power, and by people who want to build muscle mass. Further, it's an exercise that we have to ask, is it intense enough to trigger lactic acid formation? Now, some might think that I've misstated the facts because of this information about lactic acid. Sadly, most gym enthusiasts do not really understand the purpose and the absolute necessity for lactic acid during our exercise programs. But you will by the end of the program. So again, for emphasis, is your exercise program intense enough to trigger lactic acid formation? It's very important that you realize, to have any hope of strength and muscle development, you must be exercising anaerobically. Now, the caution is that a person can exceed limits. There are limits on your exercise program, intensity, duration, and you can actually create a catabolic state when you exercise. This goes back to the concept of intensity and duration of your exercise. Just bear with me and I'll tie all this together for you in a few minutes. So, now that you understand a little bit about anaerobic exercise, just what is aerobic exercise? Here's a blast from the past for you. Yes, the hallmark of what was really starting the anaerobic exercise revolution. Maybe some of you remember these type of photos. But let's better define aerobic exercise other than tall socks and sleek suits. Aerobic literally means with oxygen, as with the opposition, anaerobic being in the absence of oxygen. Aerobic, exercise. I'll cut. Let me get a drink. I'm drying out again, Jan. Sorry. It's really late. I'm going to back this up and start with. I'm going to leave this. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Aerobic exercise means with oxygen. Of course, remember, anaerobic was in the absence of oxygen. Aerobic exercise, also referred to a lot of times as cardio or cardio-type exercises. And some examples, the cardio kickboxing, walking, running, swimming, rowing, jumping, etc. But there's another major division between anaerobic and aerobic exercise, besides the issue of oxygen. And there's the buzzword, low intensity activity that requires the body to supply oxygen to support performance over a period of time. Intensity and duration. Critical. Please notice for emphasis, low intensity and not a short burst, but a long duration. Now, the intensity is one that will increase your heart rate as indicated on the screen, but it will do this. In other words, your exercise will sustain this increased heart rate for a long period of time. Let's review again. Remember, aerobic exercise includes lower intensity activities performed for a long period of time. Activities such as slow walking, treadmill, rowing, etc. They require a great deal of oxygen to generate the energy needed for prolonged exercise. Aerobic, in the presence of oxygen. The key here is that aerobic exercise, as they are often used or promoted for fat loss, and a more critical point is that any type of aerobic exercise has little or no potential to develop strength and muscle. And, flag on the field, caution. They really can generate a catabolic state. Literally, the aerobic type exercise can very easily place someone in a catabolic state. Again, by the conclusion of this seminar, I'm going to drive this point home. So let's take a quick review of the comparison between anaerobic and aerobic exercises. Visually, as you can see, the aerobic, the body requires oxygen. Anaerobic, in the absence of oxygen. As you can see, the substrate is base material that the body will convert in the chemical process to generate the mechanical energy in order to achieve that muscle contraction. In other words, what are we using to create ATP to get that chemical to mechanical response to get the muscle to contract? So here's a quick look with another image to better understand these principles. The image just helps you visually recognize that when you employ anaerobic exercise, you are converting your substrate material or your energy for the fuel in the absence of oxygen and within the cytoplasm of the cell. Whereas if you engage in aerobic exercise, you're converting your substrates or of energy fuel in the many mitochondria of the cells. Very simple. In the absence of oxygen or in the presence of oxygen. So just why do you need to know this? Well, here's the problem. Here's why I discuss this anaerobic, aerobic. Because most people, one of the biggest problems is that most fitness enthusiasts face is right here. The majority of all exercise activities that are promoted for muscle development or fat reduction are exercise activities that are being performed in the wrong portion of this continuum. People are continually conducting their anaerobic exercise programs as if they were aerobic exercises. In other words, people are trying to build strength and muscle while performing a marathon aerobic exercise, a long duration exercise program, and then wondering why they don't get results. Allow me to better illustrate this concept and how it relates to your three energy systems. It's all about energy. Energy necessary for muscle contraction comes from the conversion of substrate material into the ATP, that chemical mechanical process. And what determines the type of material used for this conversion process is based upon the intensity and duration of your chosen exercise. What is ATP? Where does it come from? Let's take a sidebar and look at that real quickly. Everything you do requires ATP. The fact that you're sitting in front of this screen, breathing, your heart's pumping, you're using ATP. Literally, even your thoughts, every movement, your digestion, and even your viewing again of this video requires your body to produce ATP. So just what is this process and how does it work? Creatine phosphate, I referred to that earlier, or phosphocreatine. Many might have heard of this, but some might not understand just how it works. And again, not cellular biology here, we're just going to hit the basics, because I need you to understand the concepts so you'll understand why, when you work out the way you work out, why you don't get the results you want. Let's see how this allows you to exercise. This phosphocreatine, a compound found chiefly in the muscle, skeletal muscles, by the enzymatic interaction of organic phosphate and creatine. And the breaking it down, notice, provides the energy to get the muscles to contract. Again, the key is that the compound is what provides the energy for your ATP and thus your muscle contraction. Again, folks, we've said before, it's all about muscle contraction and controlling the intensity and duration of that contraction. Note the phosphocreatine is formed from parts of 3 amino acids. It is important to note, again, that it's formed from amino acids. What is this process of ATP? Let's run through the process of ATP generation and see if we can apply some of what we have already discussed. So we'll start putting all this information together for you. Basically, the amount of weight that you use or the amount of resistance that you employ with your exercise will create a stress on the body, specifically your muscles, skeletal muscles, right? Obviously, the greater the weight or resistance, the greater the stress. Therefore, the greater the stress response of the central nervous system. The greater the stress or weighted resistance, the greater the electrical response from your central nervous system. The greater the weight resistance, the greater the response from the central nervous system, the greater the electrical spark, or if you will, the stimulation. The greater the resistance creates a greater demand on the body, primarily the muscles, to produce ATP. And when you combine ATP with that spark from the nervous system, You take that chemical energy and convert it into a mechanical response. So the greater these individual components, the greater the amount of energy required and expended to acquire the muscle contraction. With greater muscle contraction, you develop more strength and then the muscle, which should make sense. After all, if you lift Volkswagens compared to semis, which one do you think is going to give you that ultimate strength and muscle? Which do you believe? Obviously, the greater weight or resistance, that greater weight-oriented exercise is going to get you the results. Now let's just see how your chosen exercise affects your energy systems. Going back to the applied exercise, the applied nutritional functional isodynamics, here's where you will see more of the science behind functional isodynamics. You need to understand these three energy systems. We've already addressed these in general. We have three energy systems that will help us develop muscle contraction in both the anaerobic and aerobic environments. But here's a quick breakdown to help you better understand the critical principle and how it relates to intensity and duration of your chosen exercise. These are the three systems we alluded to a moment ago, numbered 1, 2, and 3 across the screens. They're all designed to create the ATP necessary for muscle contraction. The first two systems are anaerobic, again, functioning without oxygen. The last of our three systems is operating in the presence of oxygen, hence the term oxidation, as this relates to, for example, fats being oxidized. Remember, creating ATP. The role of the phosphocreatine is the production of the energy required to produce muscular contractions, and it must be understood in the context of these three pathways. Again, they're concurrent systems. When you get out of your chair and move, all three energy systems are coming online, but one will always dominate based on the intensity and duration of your movement or actions. Looking at stage 1, the body generally has sufficient levels of phosphocreatine for about 1 second, and in some cases for up to 10 seconds of initial muscle contraction. Again, based on the intensity of that movement. Are you standing up gradually and walking across the room, or are you jumping up and running? Are you lifting a Volkswagen? Are you lifting a semi? Phosphocreatine is formed naturally within the body, and over 95% of that compound is stored within the muscle cells. Now, it states here about 5 ounces of phosphocreatine is present in the body of a healthy adult. And of course, it fluctuates based on your weight, based on your nutritional program, based on your age. So there's a lot of other variables. So these are just figures to work with. Now, keep in mind that you might have 5 ounces of phosphocreatine stored within your muscle cells, but it might not be readily available for ATP conversion. Remember, because of the many variables with each person, as we just identified, genetics, age, height, health, we have between 1 and 10 seconds of that stored energy before we need to generate ATP some other way. And another really critical element that determines just how much time this initial storage of energy will extend itself is, yes, intensity and duration. Again, this is greatly influenced by the intensity and duration of your chosen exercise program. However, there is a way to help improve this available energy substrate. Many of you may know this already. It's been shown that dietary creatine supplementation can increase muscle creatine within the body. Now, a sidebar to this is there's a lot of misinformation about when and how to take that creatine, and the quality of those creatines are out there. But we'll have to discuss that in another seminar. The point here is, notice that the enhancement comes from an administration of a quality creatine supplement in conjunction with anaerobic, not aerobic, exercise. Remember, this is the initial stage 1 of your energy systems. Phosphocreatine, we're in that first stage, the anaerobic alactic system, is employed when the energy need is short and intense, up to 10 seconds in duration. In reality, 1 to 4 seconds, yeah, that's an outside window. Remember, it's primarily based upon the intensity and duration. So here's what it looks like on a graphed format. As you view the graph, visualize that you are resting, as you are now, and your existing ATP level is near 100%. Remember, you're using it to move the diaphragm, to move the heart, so those muscles are moving and they're requiring ATP. However, as you engage your muscles to exercise, that first green bar on the left of your screen, that vertical green bar, you're now at that point. The phosphocreatine level in the muscle starts to drop immediately as your body tries to maintain the necessary high level of ATP. Now, the process is dependent again upon the intensity of your demand, and the conversion process ceases when you extend your existing PC or phosphocreatine availability. Now, based upon the intensity of your demand, you could exhaust your phosphocreatine in as little as 1 second. In other words, if you went from setting to jumping up to move something, or you're coming off the squat rack with a heavy weight, or you're just standing up and walking across the room again. So that time variable between the vertical green line and the vertical blue line at about the 8 seconds, that is going to change based upon how much energy is required, the intensity and duration. Now here is a diagram of how to work with the PC process. Another key point, a critical step that people miss a lot of times is not only rest and recovery, recoup, rebuild after your workout, but between your exercises themselves. Some people do compound exercises, so they deplete that initial energy store and they immediately go right into their next routine without allowing the body to replenish that phosphocreatine. So the body needs this time. And this is relative, again, to the intensity and duration. It's a gray area, but it's a rule of thumb. Do you wait a minute between your exercise 1 and exercise 2? Or do you wait 3 minutes? And you also have to remember that if you're lifting a Volkswagen or pushing a Volkswagen, you may be able to get away with a 30-second rest and then push it again. But can you do that if you're pushing a semi? All right, let's move on to that second stage, the lactic acid system. Again, we're still in the anaerobic energy. We're still dealing without oxygen. So you've expended your readily available source of your phosphocreatine. Now your body must engage its second level of energy creation. This is that anaerobic glycolysis, or the lactic acid system. It takes over. Remember, they all come online at the same time, but one will dominate. So when your body runs out of available phosphocreatine, you're now into the phase 2, or system 2. And this is just an elaborate view of the concept. You're on the left of the screen, you're taking in your substrate, your proteins, your carbohydrates, and nucleic acids and stuff through the system, through the stomach, intestines, goes into general circulation. Some of it goes into the muscles. There's conversions going on, but this is the whole visual of the anaerobic system. Now, as you can see, your body takes in a variety of these nutrients in the forms of proteins, carbs, fats, as we said. This goes through your digestive system, as we said, and is converted. And notice on the right, there's this lactic acid and a hydrogen ion. We're going to look into that a little bit further too. So stage 2, you're creating ATP. This responds to demands between that 1 second when you ran out of your phosphocreatine and up to, again, 90 seconds. That's, again, intensity and duration. And also based on your general health, your physical fitness level and such, your age. So this second stage of energy conversion will most often become exhausted in well under 60 seconds. Well under. And you'll see that in the gym. You'll see these people going to the fitness centers, and they'll grab that curl bar, and they'll take a deep breath, and they'll just, with their mouth shut, and then the steam's coming out of their ear, they're not breathing, and they're pumping these reps, and all of a sudden you'll see them grasp for a quick breath. They just changed energy systems. And they'll try to hold that breath again for a moment while they pump out a few more reps, and all of a sudden they're panting like a horse that's been running for a mile. Now they've switched systems again. So, let's talk about ATP from fats or carbs. So your ATP converted from fats and carbohydrates takes place when you are resting and when you are engaged in sub-maximal exercise. Your body is burning fat when you're in sub-maximal exercise. Remember, when you're at rest, like you are right now, listening, watching this program, your body's in a fat-burning mode. It relies on fat at this point. However, when you reach what we call a threshold, about 50 to 65% of your maximum capacity, again, that intensity issue for most recreational programs, your body crosses over because the fat takes too long to convert for quick muscle contraction based on the intensity. You need more muscle contractions, faster, stronger. Body cannot get it out of fat, so it goes into the carbohydrates, hence why this is called the glycolysis mode or system. So think about it. It's all about intensity and duration. Now, let's take a more thorough look at lactic acid. I'm sure there's some confusion about that, because most people think that their sore muscles and post-workout aches and pains come from this lactic acid. But here are a few facts that you should know about lactic acid. It's formed from the breakdown of carbohydrates, which is going to be accomplished in that second phase and third phase of your energy systems. It's important to know that some substrates are difficult for the body to convert quickly into the required energy for muscle contraction. But if the body has lactic acid, that converts very quickly. The body loves lactic acid. In fact, it's preferred by your heart. Remember we said before, your heart's not picky. It'll take anything and convert it for ATP, for that muscle contraction, to keep that pump moving. But it really loves lactic acid. That's why it's preferred by the heart and the skeletal muscles. But lactic acid does have that dark side. Let's see if we can expand upon that. When your body makes lactic acid, it splits into a lactic ion or lactate and a hydrogen ion. I'll bet most people never heard about that. In fact, I was reading a report by a doctor the other day that talked about the soreness of the muscles coming from lactic acid. Well, let's take a look at this real quick. Here you see another example of that stage 2 anaerobic metabolism or anaerobic energy system. And you can follow the dotted line. And if we're below that 50% intensity, our body is going to use fat for energy, for ATP. But when we start moving the intensity up or the duration too long, the body turns on this other system. And because it needs to make more muscle contractions, it will use glucose, spin off this lactate and this hydrogen ion. So consuming carbohydrates, the body will consume these carbohydrates as the intensity of our exercise increase. Again, when this happens, the body generates the lactic acid because it's much quicker. The lactate is much quicker conversion into energy for muscle contraction. And then it spins off, again, the hydrogen ion. Now, the hydrogen ion is the acid in lactic acid. It's the hydrogen ion that interferes with the electrical signals in your muscles and nerves and slows energy reactions and impairs muscle contraction. The burn you feel after your workout and that intense exercise is caused by the hydrogen ion buildup, not the lactic acid. Not lactic acid. So lactic acid doesn't cause muscle soreness and cramps. The delayed onset of muscle soreness, when you leave the gym and you're feeling really post-exercise tissue inflammation and such, that's coming from what? Notice most muscle cramps are caused by muscle nerve receptors that become overexcitable with muscle fatigue and or various nutritional mineral deficiencies coupled with dehydration. See? Have you begun to recognize the failings of yet another guru-inspired myth? Oh, your sore muscles and such are due to lactic acid. Wrong. Lactic acid is needed. Now, in that line, let's talk about another myth that's associated with this, and that's what we call carb loading. And you'll see people racing into the gym, slugging down a protein shake as they walk in, or they'll be eating like you see in these pictures or drinking throughout their workout. In fact, I've had runners, long-distance runners, just beat the drum of how they spend the days before they go on these marathons carb loading. Now, prior to engaging in that marathon, they'll just suck down spaghetti. They're proud of their spaghetti. I've seen countless people doing just what is pictured on your screen. Somehow people believe that if they run into the locker room and wash down some chemical energy drink mixture or chomp down some synthetic energy bar just before or as they work out, that this is somehow going to translate into bigger and a stronger body. Wrong. Now, there are many great products that are designed to be supportive of your nutritional needs, and thus they will assist you in achieving your exercise and fitness goals. But carb loading is not part of a really beneficial program. Excuse me, Jan, I got to drink and clear my throat. Okay, sorry about that. 1, 2, 3. Try it again. 1, 2, 3. That's why there's a simple reason why carb loading does not work. In fact, it will actually work against all of your fitness goals. Lactic acid, in contrast to glucose and other fuels, is smaller and better exchanged between tissues. Lactic acid also moves across cell membranes by a rapid process called facilitated transport. Not that that's important, but it moves faster, so the body can get more muscle contractions out of lactic acid. Other fuels, such as carbohydrates, that protein shake you wash down that's got 40% sugars and 50% fillers and 10% of something else, or that combination synthetic bar, okay? These require slower carrier systems such as insulin. Muscle cells with large glycogen reserves cannot release significant amounts of this potential energy source as glucose because, notice, muscles lack the key enzyme required to produce the free glucose that can be released into the blood. So, in brief, carb loading is not biologically possible. Also, the most people will achieve by shoving down a synthetic mega bar or some gruesome power shake of fairy dust, the most they can achieve is a full stomach that you gotta have to work out with. So if you're into carb loading, I would recommend you do some research because it's not helping you out. Okay, on these energy systems, We're now going out of stage 2 into stage 3. Let's look at this third stage of aerobic energy creation, or the oxidation stage. Here, again, remember, these energy systems are all about developing ATP for muscle contraction. And all of these energy systems run for a period of time that is dependent upon what we previously mentioned, factors like your age, your physical condition, genetics and such, and also the intensity and duration of your program. Remember, ATP exists for the explicit purpose of creating muscle contraction. So we want to remember that. With each stage of energy production, the creation of ATP is from a different substrate. The first stage, it was using phosphocreatine. The second stage, in low intensity, it was fat. If you increased the intensity and duration, it switched over to glycogen. And then we got into the lactic acid process. Now in stage 3, we're aerobic. We're in the presence of oxygen, and it'll use any available substrate. So let's make sure that we're clear on this. When you have a long duration exercise, the body is forced to rely on stage 3 conversion for its ATP available development. All right, it's run out of the ATP from the phosphocreatine in a matter of seconds. And within a few seconds, 20, 30, 60 seconds later, depending on the intensity, it's already gone through its second stage. So when you're doing these marathon workouts, your body's in the aerobic stage 3 to get the energy for you to keep running on the treadmill for 45 minutes at Mach 1. So here's the danger. More is not better. 90-minute workouts, marathon exercises is not better. It's dangerous. The aerobic system will convert carbohydrates or fats or proteins, whatever it can, to get that energy for muscle contractions. So when you're involved in these marathon-type guru exercise programs, you'll force your body into that stage 3 energy conversion, at which the body will utilize the substrates that will easily, the easiest conversion is what the body's going for now, to generate the greatest amount of ATP. And here is why exercising in the aerobic stage places you in crisis. Why you have probably been doing this for years and wondering why you're not getting the results. Energy depletion. Let's walk through the typical energy depletion process. As you begin your exercise, stage 1. You burn through your readily available creatine within the first second or 2, depending on intensity and duration. Your body goes immediately into its second stage of conversion, fats or then carbs, which is then converted into the lactic acid based again on intensity. All right, so you're at this stage, you will be exhausted well within that 90 seconds. The chances you ever getting to 60 seconds is slim. Now, what does your body use as the substrate to convert to its ATP so that you continue to create those needed muscle contractions for this long duration marathon type workout? When phosphocreatine stores become reduced, the body replaces it with a supply from one of 2 sources. Are you ready for this? First, amino acids. Second is the muscle, the tissue building blocks present in all protein. Of course, the liver produces phosphocreatine from the amino acids. So what are we saying here? Remember, your body has a limited amount of PC, or phosphocreatine. Once your body cycles through that, it must create the fuel from another substrate to get that ATP to keep the muscle contractions going. And when the intensity and the duration exceeds the energy level of stage 1, the body must go into stage 2. And based on the intensity, it switches from fats to carbs. The carbs move into the lactic acid. Now, when the body depletes these stores, all right, it moves into stage 3. Notice here, they call stage 3 the aerobic and also the glucose alanine cycle. Notice glucose, or sugar or carbohydrate, and alanine, folks, is a amino acid. In stage 3, your very muscles are degraded in the form of amino acids and quickly converted to glucose to generate the additional ATP for those continued muscle contractions. When this happens, you cross over from muscle building to muscle consuming. You are now catabolic. Be very cautious, as stage 3 has a very great potential to take away the very muscle you are striving to create within your vigorous and extended marathon exercise programs. Are you beginning to understand how your programs, these long 45-minute running on the treadmill followed by 1-hour workouts and such, are actually compromising you? The limitations to the lactic acid systems for generating ATP is the accumulation of the hydrogen ion that creates adversity in the muscles. Now, what does that mean? Well, in other words, as you deplete in stage 1 your initial phosphocreatine, your body moves into stage 2 and it starts converting its substrates into that lactic acid. And when it builds the lactic acid, it also starts generating the hydrogen ion. And of course, based on the intensity and duration of your exercise, this will determine how much hydrogen ion is being generated. Remember, it's the hydrogen ion that causes you to exhaust your anaerobic capacity and forces the body to move to stage 3. See if I can show you on a graph. Ah, yes. Let you take that in for a moment. Now remember, when you begin exercise, all 3 energy systems come online. Bottom left of the screen. As you can see, the ATP, phosphocreatine system, stage 1, quickly depletes the stored amount of phosphocreatine and peaks well within the first few seconds. So this graph doesn't have a very high intensity. This is just typical exercise. So you can see that well within the first couple of seconds, you're peaking on your first cycle, your first stage rather. So now you move into the second phase. Remember, they all come online together. Now one's going to dominate. As you're running out of fuel in your first system, your second system's ramping up. And it's going to start creating, because of the intensity, the lactic acid. When it starts the lactic acid, as lactic acid production picks up, ATP production picks up. All right. Now it says that you're well within that 1-minute mark. But at the same time you're creating lactic acid, you're also building up the hydrogen ions. And as the hydrogen ions pick up, you start low-level performance. That's why when you see people work out, as I described earlier, they'll grab that bar and they'll huff and puff, and then they'll hold their breath and they'll pump out a bunch of reps, and all of a sudden they'll grab a quick breath and they'll get a couple more reps, and then all of a sudden they're breathing like a horse, and all of a sudden they just, I can't do anymore. Why? Because they built up that level of hydrogen ion. They exhausted their fuels based on the intensity. So if you get up to that vertical green bar, if you're still exercising at that point, well, you're in stage 3. So up to that point, I call it the anaerobic window, where you're operating the energy processes without oxygen. Once you move past that green bar, that vertical green bar, now you're in the aerobic window. And at this point, based upon the intensity and duration of your program, your body's going to start breaking down its own muscle. So it can allow you to have the muscle contractions to continue in your marathon exercise routine. Now, this is important to understand because there's other elements associated with this type of exercise performance. Maybe some of you have heard about this, called rebound. Now, this is a very specific reason why most people suffer from the rebound effect on their numerous weight loss programs. It's very simple. Because most people will fall for the same two major mistakes. One, they go on a reduced calorie diet. Two, they go on, relatively speaking, a high intensity and a variety of long duration exercises. 45 minutes on the treadmill, followed by so much of this and so much of that, for example. Now, the diet restriction generally reduces overall nutritional quality as well as calories. The marathon treadmill, for example, on the other hand, or these exercise classes with these high intensity and long durations, demand that their body produce high levels of ATP. But because of the low calorie and the low quality of nutritional intake, the body must break down its own muscle to achieve these results. Therefore, as I show you on the screen, in general, it's scientifically proven that of that first 10 pounds of muscle people lose, 85% of that loss is muscle. That's why they don't see a lot of size difference, because after all, a pound of muscle weighs the same. Cut, sorry. Another drink, I'm drying out here. 1, 2, 3. Because after all, a pound of muscle weighs the same as a pound of fat, but the pound of muscle takes up less space. So when you lose that, you don't see a lot of changes in clothing size. You see weight loss. You see it on the scale, but you're losing muscle. Now, this muscle loss signals a crisis in the body because now we're talking about muscle wasting, and the body doesn't like that. It responds. Sarcopenia. Catabolic. Body doesn't like it. So the body responds in what most people refer to as hunger pains or actual nutritional deficiencies. And the people fight these for a period of time until they cannot fight it anymore. And then they eat with a very ravenous appetite. And people then gain back everything they lost and then more. Remember, when you get into these catabolic programs, marathon programs, these guru weight loss programs, your body, again, is going to go catabolic. It's going to eat itself. And you're going to suffer. Now, you have the missing pieces. You should now understand why your weight programs are not giving you the results. Your exercise programs are not giving you what you want. That's why I caution. While most people listen to these musclehead gurus and these TV fanatics and all their mythical programs and all this printed literature that comes out in volumes every month, the reality of science, real science and biology, just sails off in the sunset while everyone else is sitting on the dock. Or maybe I should say it this way. When people listen and buy into all these myths and this science fiction, they just miss the boat of reality. So let's do a little energy summary. Let's just quickly review the process of energy generation, so you can see how and why functional isodynamics works. You should also have a better understanding of, well, why other programs have failed. Let me see if I can do it graphically here. On the left, the contrast is simple. With functional isodynamics, we work within the anaerobic window and avoid the aerobic window when it comes to exercise for the purpose of strength and muscle development. We don't want to be catabolic. We want both the intensity and duration of our program to maximize the benefits within the anaerobic window. Remember, it's all about intensity and duration. Your stage 1 energy lasts, in reality, only a matter of 1 or 2 seconds in general. And when your stage 2 system comes online, well, it'll peak in about 15 seconds and exhaust with this hydrogen buildup, this hydrogen ion buildup, well within about 45 seconds. And again, you'll notice this in the gym when people exercise, how they do those reps and how quickly they exhaust. Now you know that doing a set to failure will only create a serious catabolic state in your body, because people that do a 1 set to failure, they've already been doing marathon exercises. They've been pushing Volkswagens for a long time. They forced their body into stage 3, that aerobic respiration system. And they're forcing their body to be catabolic. Let's do a pictorial display here. You can choose aerobic or anaerobic. Just a few visuals to help you appreciate the difference. How about this one? Okay. Short, explosive program versus the long duration. So your choice. 5 minutes every 2 weeks, or a muscle head workout that has you doing 90 minutes 3 to 5 to 6 times a day. Applied nutrition. We said we'd talk a little bit about it. We're going to make it very simple. Let's just add a few points here about nutrition. Simply stated, both your pre and post workout meals are critical. I do suggest whey protein and other products. Again, this is not the intent of this particular program, but the intent of a pre and post workout is really to help prevent your body going into catabolic states. Because even if you work a high intensity, short duration workout like functional isodynamics, you're still going to put a demand on your body. And when you finish that workout, it still has to have energy to perform things like going home from the gym, functioning the rest of the day. So to prevent it from going catabolic then, you really need to focus on your pre and post workout formulas. Now when it comes to the treadmill, here are just a few quick points to know about the treadmill on your regular running program, if in fact you have one. First of all, I recommend running no faster than you can carry on a conversation. We should be able to talk just as we are right now, which in general is about 2.4 miles per hour. I further recommend that you don't go beyond about 20 minutes. Again, intensity, duration. When you start moving about that intensity, you move it up to that 50 to 65 percentile, your body starts converting from its fuel substrates. The whole purpose of being on the treadmill, no more than 3 and at the very most 4 days per week, is for fat. So do it first thing in the morning. When you get out of bed, get on the treadmill. That's the smartest way to do it. Now, here are a few graphs to help appreciate these points. Excuse me, Jan, I got a cough. Let me get another drink. And we got 100 slides to go, so. All right, 1, 2, 3. Now, here are a few graphs to help you appreciate these points. This just helps you visualize that your body will use fat as that substrate for the conversion of ATP when you have low intensity exercise. If you notice, as the intensity increases, The body switches from fats for its substrates to carbs because the carbs need to go to the lactic acid because it's a faster conversion. Again, you can see the research illustrates that your total energy consumption is from fat when you keep your intensity low. Hence the reason to keep the speed down on your treadmill. You don't need to run it up to maximum elevation, run it at Mach 1 to see if your hair's on fire. Don't do that. And when you do get on the treadmill, do it first thing in the morning. That's when the body's moving the fat into the energy system. Just one more to further illustrate what I call the intensity threshold. When the intensity of your exercise effort increases above that 50 to 60 percentile for more than about 20 to 25 minutes, your body switches from burning fat to carbohydrates. So again, that's why you keep your speed or the intensity down and your exercise time or duration low. This is one of the reasons I suggest short bursts of high intensity to get the results you want from your exercise, your muscle, your strength, but low speed and low intensity if you want to burn fat. Just a simple process again to illustrate it. Another perspective in the crossover of the intensity threshold that I spoke of. Your effort or intensity will dictate which substrate your body will utilize in creating its ATP. And most people, sadly, because they exert themselves on the treadmill, high elevation, high speed, etc., or get on the ellipticals or any other form of those exercise programs thinking they're burning fat, when in fact they're not. Most of them actually, after they've been on there a while, burning muscle. So, the fly in the ointment. Do you really think that any exercise program will work as effectively for 20-year-old athletes as it does for 60-year-olds with diabetes? See that one-size-shoe philosophy that these gurus spit out? Everyone needs to work out 5 days a week. We all work out Monday, Wednesday, Friday. It doesn't work. Remember, low intensity, short duration if you want to move the fat off the body. Let's do a little review of this functional isodynamics, shall we? Remember, it's really all about choices, and you get to make every one of them. You can make your future choices based on the typical rhetoric you hear at the gyms and in the magazines, or you can base your choices on evidence, outcome-based results, which I've tried to demonstrate for you in these seminars. Now you should have a pretty good understanding as to why your workouts are too long in duration, and for muscle and strength, too low in intensity. You should have a real good understanding now that you might very well be overtrained, not fully recovered, and even dealing with nourishment issues. Why does functional isodynamics work? Well, it's because the movements are mechanical advantage designed. They're functional. We're not getting creative. They're controlled. They're timed, explosive, dynamic energy. They're confined within the anaerobic energy system where there's sufficient rest between sets to recover that ATP. That's why, if you remember in our diagrams of the workouts we performed, we were working out, pushing weight, pumping iron for 5 minutes or 3 minutes, but we might have been in the gym for anywhere between 30 minutes and an hour because of the recovery time. When you push a semi, it takes a while to catch your breath and then do the next one set routine. Of course, there's adequate nutrition for cellular reproduction and recovery. We want to balance that with the proper aerobic exercise for that fat. And of course, the recuperation time. Everybody needs to recover. On your part, it's always about commitment. I always tell people, get your head in the game and bring your body with it. Now, I often hear people say, if only, as in, if only I had known, or if only I had something that worked. Please remember, as I've stated several times throughout this program is all about you, and it works. And if you want results like you've never had before, then this program is for you. It only takes your commitment. And when you apply our time-proven, outcome-based programs that are scientifically validated, mechanically or functionally correct, far safer than the guru-ordered programs that you read about, many have been victimized by those over the years, you will notice results from our program within 90 days. Again, use what's working, what's been proven to work. That's what Super Cherie did. Recall from her previous seminar presentations, I stated that I would give you an update on her progress. Cut. Let me go back. Let me back up one here. Let me get a breath. Sorry, Jan, it's late. God, early in the morning. 1, 2, 3. Again, use what's working and has been proven to work. That's what Super Cherie did. Recall from my previous seminar presentations, I stated that I would give you an update on her progress. Well, they say that a picture is worth 1,000 words. So I'll let the photos do the talking. I may add a few comments, but here's the photos. As you've previously seen. Ah, yes, the new Cherie. And for visual contrast and to visually demonstrate the real value of functional isodynamics, applied exercise, and nutrition, this, ladies and gentlemen, is very clearly evidence-based or outcome-based results. Now, is she the only one, as I said before? No, there's many. Okay. But the seminar only needs this to screwed up. Sorry about that, Jan. 1, 2, 3. This, ladies and gentlemen, is very clearly evidence-based or outcome-based results. Now, are there more people with these results? Yes, there are. But our seminar only has a limited amount of time. The fourth point in the summary, critical. Correct balance of nutrition you need to support the regeneration and muscle growth. Just like myself and Cherie, all of my clients, balance is always the key. And the correct issue, don't forget the recuperation. Obviously, you recuperate when you're sleeping, but you require the correct balance of nutrition and hydration 24 hours a day. You cannot and should not ignore the essential value of this when you are in a recuperative state. Your body's rebuilding in this position right here. Give your body what it needs. You only have one body, as we know. So don't do what you've done and expect different results. That's the definition, as we know, of insanity. But, very sadly, people go to the same gym or fitness center multiple times each week doing exactly the same things and expecting different results. They don't get them. Remember, 0.5% have recognizable results after 1 year. You're going to be, in functional isodynamics, employing great force with functional isodynamic movements integrated within the optimum anaerobic response and supported with proper nutrition. The reason we can achieve noticeable results within 90 days, right here. We are doing something different. and we are getting results. This is the paradigm shift. Now, you probably didn't know you were going to have a quiz, so let me just ask you this. If you are pushing or trying to push that 12.5-ton semi across the parking lot, please let me know which one muscle that you have in your body that is not fully engaged. Do you understand now why we don't spend senseless times in the fitness center pushing Volkswagens? We want results. Now, here's the follow-up question. Why not use 77 different exercises? After all, if you actually succeeded in pushing the 12.5 tons across the parking lot, why would you then go into the gym and do leg extensions to failure? Or go to the bench press and do one set to exhaustion? Recall the 650 muscles based upon how you divide the muscle groups. If you just employed every one of these muscles to their maximum, pushing this semi across the parking lot, do you really think you need a finishing set? Remember, we do one primary set that engages the major muscle groups and or the core, and we use sufficient weighted resistance or stress to stimulate that central nervous system, proper nutrition, and then we reap the benefits. Again, the keys. I use the duration and intensity of our functional exercises to stimulate our central nervous system, to create the positive effects within our body to improve our hormones and our ATP function, everything we've talked about, so that we can actually improve the strength and the overall health of our body. All of this with the least possibility of injury. Hopefully, you've come to the realization that functional isodynamics is the foundation. It is the program to help you achieve your fitness goals. So forget the failure, forget the mistakes, forget everything except what you're going to do now and then do it. Or, as I also tell my clients, stop wishing for it to happen and make it happen. And don't forget, we said we're searching for volunteers. Well, we'd like you to join our team. Remember, it's all about choices. We have several paths that you can take. You can simply take this information and run with it on your own. You can join our clinical exercise and nutrition study, or you can join our team with me monitoring your program, or finally, you can join our team and choose the exercise program that you want and progress under your own direction. As we roll out our future various programs, all of the options and the procedures will be made available on our websites, where you can easily access them directly. So, whichever program you choose, remember to start now. And also, remember this, that when it comes to getting results, functional isodynamics is out front. Now, just to highlight a few points, here are just a few of the various programs that will be made available to all of our clients, as well as the proper nutritional support to help you achieve your goals. Don't forget, our new product formulations will be out soon, and we will be revealing these online very soon. Until then, we have adequate nutritional support for all of our client needs. And to top it all off, you have our vote of confidence, the warranty. Our programs get results. Now you know. Now you know why you haven't received your desired results from your existing program or programs, why your exercise programs are flawed, why your exercise schedule might be wrong for you, and your nutrition may need some attention. But most importantly, you now know exactly what to do in order to just correct this. Excuse me. Blew that. Dry it out. Sorry, Jan. This is getting to the end. All right, let me back up. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Now you know why you haven't received your desired results from your existing program or programs. Why your exercise program has some flaws and where they might be. And why your exercise schedule may just be wrong for you. And that your nutrition might need some attention. But most importantly, you now know exactly what to do, not only to correct this, but to finally make the serious progress and achieve the desired results that you have been searching for. The program works. Work the program. Remember, folks, this is not a pill, it's a program. As you are well aware, these are functional exercise and nutritional programs or strategies. Nothing creative. I've done all the work. All you need to do is apply. In fact, I've done over 50 years of work here. And when you apply the programs, you get the benefits that you've always desired. Functional isodynamics is the total program. It's all packaged so as to allow you to go to just one place. You pick your desired program, nutritional support, get started, and as you've always wanted, you get the results. So break out of the mold. Join the team. Remember, this is not science fiction. This is real. And the foundation is evidence-based. And before I part, let's bring this point up again. Please, I don't want you to leave this seminar with me sounding like an alarmist, but this is worth highlighting one more time. If you don't do anything else, please avoid the dangers associated with all of these marathon-type workouts. If you have learned anything from these seminars, please appreciate that you do not need to live in the gym or fitness centers 3 to 6, 7 days a week while pounding away at endless sets and reps, compounded with a host of age-increasing exhaustive exercise. Be kind to your heart and to the rest of your body. Live smart, live safe, live strong, live long. Remember, just as a note, folks, that as we age, we will naturally lose muscle mass and strength due to our reduced muscle response to protein intake, changing hormone, a list of other things, and even less physical activity. This gradual loss of muscle mass has been linked to a litany of health problems, including insulin resistance, low bone mineral content and density, and even the associated fractures from falls, even early death. The key to dealing successfully with the issues and to improve the overall quality of your health is functional isodynamics, applied exercise and nutrition. This is Dr. Gregory, and thank you again for your interest and your desire to learn more about the most advanced exercise and nutritional programs available today. Functional isodynamics, applied exercise, and nutrition. And I want to tell you how much I appreciate your time. I trust that you were able to recognize the potential benefits of applying this program in your quest for a healthier tomorrow. This will conclude my seminar presentation. Thank you. Ah, yes, Jan, let's do it. I hope, buddy, you're happy with it. I'm firing it off to you in the morning mail. Controlled.